Good morning. Welcome to the Celtic Way Morning Briefing Live. I'm Tony Haggerty at the Haggerty on the Twitter or X handle, and I'm joined today by Ryan McGinlay, as always, at the Ryan McGinlay. I'll try that again, at the Ryan McGinlay on the Twitter handle or X handle. Ryan, I'm still suffering, but there you go. How are you, sir? It's not exactly.
Start as you mean to go on, Tony. Start as you mean to go on. It can only get better from here. Yeah, I'm doing not too bad. I know you're still feeling a wee bit under the weather, but I'll try and carry the both of us through this morning briefing. We'll get plenty to discuss. It's a new week to discuss Celtic. 2 games this week. And yeah, positive vibes, I say. It's Monday. Hopefully it's a good week in the world of Celtic.
Must feel like Paul McStay here, Ryan. All that carrying you're doing. Paul McStay used to do that with the Celtic midfield in the 1990s, I believe.
Yes, you're talking about the 90s.
Yes, the
bad, for the pod.
The bad 90s. Usually it's a happy Monday. It's not an unhappy Monday, but a kind of meh Monday, isn't it? After the results of the weekend. Yeah, exactly. But before we do anything, we big up our sponsors. As you can see at the top, as Ryan's pointing to there, the Celtic Way is sponsored by MPH Group. So for all your plumbing, heating, kitchens and bathroom needs, check them out. And the morning briefing is brought to you by MPH Group, and they are Scotland's award-winning family-run all-trade specialists covering all of mainland Scotland. And every service you opt for automatically enters you into MPH's incredible holiday giveaway. And you could win a wonderful 7-night stay at the luxurious 5-star Moon Palace Resort in Cancun, Mexico. And you'll find all the links to their social media platforms, including their telephone number, in the description of this video. So check out MPH Group, guys, for all your plumbing, heating, kitchen and bathroom needs. And we say thank you to them for their sponsorship of the Celtic Way Morning Briefing. And also, along the strapline, if you subscribe to the Celtic Way, it'll cost you £4 for 4 months. Or why not take a yearly subscription for £18 and help support top quality football journalism in the process, covering the club you love. Hit that button, guys, www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. That's www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. Now, Ryan, Hibernian 0, Celtic 0. Celtic's lead at the top reduced to 5 points over the weekend. Bit of a lacklustre performance. We spoke about it in the after-match briefing as well. Have you got any more or any additional thoughts or things that you've mulled over and wanted to get off your chest on the morning briefing? Fire away, sir.
It was a very mixed 90 minutes yesterday watching certain results go through. I would say that's for sure. I thought maybe Celtic would get away with it at the weekend, but it wasn't to be. It's you can never say never with some results, and that was the case. The gap was shortened just a tad. It wasn't a defeat on Saturday. I know it does feel like a defeat whenever Celtic don't win a game, but it was a draw. They only dropped 2 points rather than 3, so it could have been worse. Especially looking back on that. I don't know about you, but I think about that Martin Boyle chance quite a lot over the weekend. That was an absolutely massive opportunity. I'm sure he has. He's probably recollected it a lot. I wonder if he's had a bit of sleep over the weekend, because it was a massive, massive opportunity. Basically an open goal, and he skies it. So, it could have been worse. A draw. If as Greg Taylor said, when you were talking to him, he says if you can't win, then don't lose, and that was the next best thing. And they got the draw. I mean, Easter Road has been quite a difficult place for Celtic to go in recent years, especially under Brendan Rodgers. I'm trying to find the positives out of a fairly negative result, coincided with the other result at the weekend as well. But I thought they were going to get away with it. It didn't transpire that way. But as I said on Twitter yesterday, I think the damage was already done. You give other teams an opportunity by dropping points, they're going to take it more often than not. And Celtic have just got to regroup, and starting on Wednesday, just assume that if they keep on winning, then other teams will drop points, and then it'll go back to the way it was. But yeah, it was a disappointing weekend all in. It was the performance more than the result, I think, that disappointed me, because they didn't get up to their usual high standard. A lot of the times the result will come with the performance, because Celtic are so good, and there were certain players that just didn't. I think there were certain players that were just mentally fatigued on the day. I know Brendan Rodgers doesn't want to talk about that. He doesn't want that as an excuse, but I think that was the case. I did the the Stats Bomb report yesterday. You know, Matt O'Reilly's numbers weren't as good or as outstanding as what they have been this season. Daizen Maeda, his numbers weren't as outstanding in terms of the pressures, key passes. It's actually the subs that came on that made a difference. You know, David Turnbull had 3 key passes and he was only on the pitch for 25, 30 minutes. So maybe it shows you that the team needs a bit freshened up on Wednesday. I don't know if 3 days will be enough of a rest for some players. There's definitely some selection quandaries, I would say.
Definitely.
As much as you want a consistent team, I think there is opportunity to switch it around a wee bit. I want to see more of the likes of Odin Thiago Holm. I want to know where he's at with regard to his fitness, because he's not been quoted in the past few teams. I know he was I don't know if he was suspended for 2 games in Europe. That wasn't really cleared up. So he wasn't in the team, and then he wasn't in the team at the weekend. I did enjoy Bernardo's first half performance, but I want to see competition for places, even with Hatate's injury. I want to see Bernardo and Odin Holm fight it out for that spot, because it looks as if Hatate, there was I don't know if they were unconfirmed rumours that he was out till the new year. I think Brendan Rodgers will speak about it today because he'll have more of a prognosis on the player, but you're hoping it's not that amount of time.
I'd like to think it wasn't, Ryan, but that would be a major blow if it was. Some comments coming in, you know, Callum McGregor said it's not the kind of doom and gloom that it's being painted out to be. Pablo 67 can agree, 16 points from 18 in the away games. He would take that at the start of the season. Yeah, I mean, I still think it's been a pretty solid start to the season. Could have been better, we know that. But hey, you know, twice Celtic have failed in the league to score goals. They've drawn 0-0 on both occasions. So do just what you want from that. Hazel Finn, I'm sure Brendan Rodgers will know the best way to help the squad before Wednesday. As far as she's concerned, it's a must-win game, no excuses. Yep. Tim Anon, he wants to talk about the fact that Mikey Johnston is anywhere near the Celtic team. He wasn't good enough 2 years ago, so why is he good enough now? Time to get rid, he's saying. David Blakely Kerr saying Celtic were tired, as simple as first half the Atletico took it out of them, but still had a lot of possession and shots. St Mirren will be a very tough game. And Pablo 67 benching Saturday was a wake-up call for the January transfer window. And I wanted to flick this up. Thomas Gallagher, really sorry to hear that, fella. Just everybody in the Celtic way community will rally around you. I would hope and just say we wish you well, sir. We will keep you in our thoughts and prayers. There's Thomas's message me all morning. All got some bad news this morning at hospital. We'll need to start dialysis as soon as, because his kidneys aren't functioning. So please keep me in your thoughts and prayers. You're very much in my thoughts and prayers, Thomas, because you are a very solid contributor and a commenter in the comment section. So hope everything goes well, sir. I hope you get that sorted soon as, and you make a full and speedy recovery. But yeah, we'll certainly keep you in my thoughts and prayers, fella. Good man. Cheers for that. So yeah, hope everybody wishes him well. Good man, Thomas. Take care. But yeah, I think, Ryan, the positives are that Celtic are still 5 points clear at the top, and they're unbeaten in the league. So it's that's a good sign as well. Issues like Mikey Johnston and the bench, which you mentioned in your instant analysis, you spoke about the 3 players that came on. These will all have to be addressed. January is shaping up to be a critical window for Celtic in terms of bringing players in, shipping players out, and also in terms of the title race. Because over the weekend, you seem to be back into the title race, aren't you?
Yeah, it's just up and down, and I don't think leagues are settled in September, October time, regardless of the gap. You know, I think other teams are going to get a new manager bounce. I don't want to mention them too much because it's a Celtic podcast, but there's a new manager bounce. You know, they've kept it stable in the Scottish Premiership. They've been winning games. You know, it doesn't matter if you win ugly. It doesn't matter how you win. If you win games and you get 3 points, then you know it's better than dropping points. It was just the performance at the weekend that annoyed me.
Yes.
And I don't agree with a lot of this criticism. Now, I am not Mikey Johnston's biggest fan as a Celtic player. I think he's very, very hit and miss. But looking at that game objectively at the weekend, he did more in 25 minutes than Palma did in 60. I think he's a bit of a scapegoat, if I'm being honest. I think when things aren't going well and he gets brought onto the pitch, I know it's his first game in 19 months. That's quite an incredible stat. 19 months have gone by so quickly, if that's the case. But I think he was a bit of a scapegoat at the weekend when he was actually trying to make things happen on the wing. There was a couple of moments where he managed to turn his man and try to get a ball into the box. He was trying. Not everything was coming off for him. You're going to get that up and down performance. But there is a talent there. There's a reason why he is still at Celtic all of these years, despite all the injuries and drops in form. He might not be the answer long term, but if he's an option coming off the bench, then you've got to get behind the player. I thought he did more in the game and took on his man more than Palma did. I thought it was a really poor performance by Palma's standards. Not writing off a player after one bad game because he was so good against Atletico Madrid. It's very much that up and down roller coaster that we're talking about just now with Celtic and the feeling towards Celtic. You can't get too high and you can't get too low with this team. You've just got to keep a balance. And yeah, you wouldn't put it past Mikey Johnston to have a really good game against against St Mirren if he came off the bench at Celtic Park. Maybe he just needs a game to step out from this. I don't know the lethargic. I saw this attitude towards him. It's I'm not his biggest supporter when it comes to the football player. I would much rather have other options such as Maeda and Palma, obviously down that wing. But if he's there to contribute, and I want him to do as well as he can in a Celtic jersey.
Well, the manager was asked in his comments where he was very hit and miss. So I think he was kind of, defending Mikey on that one. Greg Taylor was also asked about him. He said there's definitely a player there. You should see what he does in training and all that kind of stuff. So I guess if he's shown it in training, then that catches the eye of the manager, doesn't it? And, so he's still there for a reason. Danny Boy, sorry, Ryan, Johnston's time was up. Enough's enough. And I think you came on after the game on Saturday and you said there was a lot of knee-jerk. Yeah, there's a lot of criticism, basically, to the fact that Celtic had drawn a football match. And I think, guys, I've made my thoughts on Mikey Johnston clear before. I'm certainly not his biggest fan, but I don't think Mikey Johnston had anything to do with the result on Saturday. He did try. I just think sometimes, and this is my personal opinion, I just think that there's still some things that he does that show me that he's not learning, like running the ball out the park.
Yeah,
that was Mikey Johnston of 2 years ago, and I'm sick, fed up seeing that. Yeah, I think he can beat a man lovely. There's some lovely technical skills he's got, but see all that kind of stuff that I thought he went to Portugal to iron out his game. I'm just not seeing that improvement, and I think I quote my father. My father always says that's schoolboy stuff. That running it out the park or running out of park as you're going down the line, that kind of stuff. And sometimes I feel that Mikey Johnston looks like a boy playing adult football. At times, but I still think that there's a footballer there. I get all that, but I just wanted to see signs of real improvement. And I get what you're saying, he's first game in 19 months, but this is a guy that's getting rave reviews for Ireland every time he pulls on an international jersey. And so, show me that, Mikey Johnston. I want to see that. I want to see what everybody's talking about,
Show me the Mikey Johnston that played at Easter Road 2 years ago under Ange Postecoglou in his first visit to Easter Road. Remember he played Hibs off the park until, did he get an injury or something? That's probably the story of his career. He'll have a really good game, but he won't last 3-4 games without picking up a knock. And then by then, other players take that opportunity and come into the team. Can I just play devil's advocate with something? You see, with the whole running the ball out of the park, and this isn't a slight on you or anything like that. It's just a common opinion. Dyson Maeda does the same thing, but I don't think he gets nearly as much of the criticism. I just think maybe that's because of Maeda's work rate off the ball. He's very much a sacrificial player. He's going to put in the hard yards. Maybe it's because Mikey Johnston doesn't do as much on the defensive end. He'll get more stick. Or maybe just due to the fact that he was a highly promising youngster that came into the team. I remember him scoring 2 goals. Was it against St Johnstone or Dundee or something like that at home in one of his first games? People are like, wow, what a player this guy looks. And I don't even think he's as good as a player he was then. I think he's regressed as a player, unfortunately. But it's up to him to take his opportunities when they come, because he won't get too many. He's got to take them when they come.
And Mikey Johnston's defence on Saturday, he at least tried. He was trying to make things happen. Couldn't make things happen. Didn't make things happen. In terms of, you mentioned Lewis Palmer, I thought Lewis Palmer on Saturday played for himself. Didn't play as a team player, and get really frustrated and wound up with himself. And there was all that exasperation and throwing your hands up in the air, and and you're just thinking, see if you concentrate, Lewis, and be the team player. I think there was one instance when he tried to shoot, or he did, when he could easily have slipped Kyogo in. And I think Kyogo
berated him right. About that.
Yeah.
It was so obvious that you had to pass to Kyogo.
Right. So be a team player, right, in those situations. And don't throw your hands up and get wound up with yourself, because you're beating yourself up and you're no use then. And unsurprisingly, he got hooked because he was being pretty selfish. And I think Lewis Palmer, not saying getting carried away with your own hype, because you've played a couple of good games for Celtic and scored a couple of good goals, but this is what separates I keep saying it, good players from great players and excellent players. Guys that are class. That in those wee moments, slip your teammate in, because an assist like that's worth you actually being the hero. You don't have to be the hero. You don't have to take it on your shoulders all the time. But Lewis Palmer, from very early on, you noticed he didn't think it was going to be his kind of game, and nothing was working for him. And I'm surprised he lasted that long, actually, because you could have got taken off at half time. Dyson Maida, I'll give you, he does run the ball out the park, a la Mikey Johnston, but I think Dyson Maida's pros outweigh his cons.
Yeah.
And Celtic supporters can put up with, because they know they're getting a shift out of Dyson Maida. They know he can score every now and again. They know he can man mark and do the defensive stuff and the untidy stuff, which I don't think Mikey Johnston has in his locker as of yet. And don't know if he'll have it moving forward. But, I say this wasn't Mikey Johnston's fault, but he copped a brunt of the criticism, as you say. And I think he was an easy target and an easy scapegoat on Saturday. And, if you're going to be like that, James Forrest missed a sitter. If you want to break it down like that, should have scored.
I don't think he escaped a lot of the criticism, unfortunately for him as well. He was making opportunities. I know he didn't score his chance, but he was in that position. I don't want to say hit it too well, because if he hit it well enough, it would have been in the back of the net rather than hit the crossbar. But it's.
I'm talking about that kind of knee-jerk and scattergun criticism.
Oh, aye,
that happens. So Celtic were poor on Saturday. Most individuals were poor. You did the stats bomb report. I don't know who came out highly in that, but there can't be many. So. It was just one of those days. Yes, they've had two of them so far, St Johnstone and Hibernian, but they've had a ridiculously tough start to the season, Ryan. All those away games sandwiched in between, playing at a really high level. And there is a come down from the highs of Wednesday night when you're playing it and zipping it about at a fast tempo, going toe-to-toe with a brilliant team and holding your own. And then you go to Easter Road and there is a come down factor. I think Kevin McKenna and myself were speaking about it on Friday. You're just not playing that standard and level of opposition every week in the Scottish Premiership. And then with Martin Boyle's chance apart, Hibs weren't really intent on getting forward, were they?
No, I thought they were well drilled. They're clearly better under Nick Montgomery than they were under Lee Johnson. That is definitely for sure. They're definitely positive signs. I know they get beat. Was it 4-0 off the Rangers the week before?
Yep.
But they made the necessary adjustments and they got a good result against Celtic. They'll probably feel unlucky that they didn't get the 3 points because of the severity of that chance from Martin Boyle. It's an absolute sitter. It's a phenomenal ball in from Jordan Obita. He actually got the highest on-ball value in the game purely because of that shot. Because of that cross. That's how accurate it was. He managed to top the charts. There was a couple of good performers for Hibs on the day, I would say. The player that stood out, I think, was the Australian. I think he's a fullback, Miller. Lewis, I think it's Lewis Miller. He was so busy in terms of tackles and interceptions for his team. I think he got 10 combined tackles and interceptions. And Rocky Bashiri got quite a few clearances too. So the defence, and I think that's been a big criticism of Hibs' game. Their defence, it seemed to show up in that game against Celtic. I know Celtic had an off day in front of goal, but Hibs did all that they could to negate Celtic, and it seemed to work for the most part for them. In terms of Celtic performances, probably Liam Scales again. It seems to be the default answer, but he kept a clean sheet. His passing values were good. He was trying to get the ball forward. His passing's definitely got better since the start of the season. Like, you think of the last enough in each game, and I always go back to it against St Johnstone at home, where his passing was so slow and lethargic. Now he's taking at most maybe 1-2 touches and then getting the ball out of his feet. That shows confidence in a player, and he can still feel confident and happy with his performance despite the fact that Celtic dropped points, because he kept a clean sheet. He kept up his end of the bargain. It's just the other players at the other end of the pitch that have been so good this season at scoring goals and making opportunities, they just had an off day. But the defence stayed resolute.
I think, and I made this point to Greg Taylor when we spoke to him afterwards, the good thing about this, Ryan, is they don't have enough time to brood over it. They're back in the saddle on Wednesday, which is good. I'm glad Celtic have got a midweek game. I'm glad it's a midweek league game as well. And it's at home, a chance to just, as I say, get it out the system, if you want, for want of a better expression. Because had they been playing next Saturday or Sunday, it would have been a long week to brood over these kind of things. But I think the immediate thing you want to do is right the wrong of Saturday, don't you, and get back out there on the pitch and show exactly why you're top of the league and 5 points clear. And I think every Celtic supporter would have taken that after the first 10 games of the season, because that there's a vast improvement in this team, certainly from Saturday, but they're capable of hitting heights, and when they do, those heights are quite spectacular and can be at times. So and there is the wider argument about the bench, the quality on the bench and the players that came on Saturday, and how January is shaping up to be a big window for Celtic, and the manager will be all over that. And that's the time when you have a look at where you're at, and if you have to spend some money, put the afterburners on and make sure that you bring in quality that guides you over the line in terms of the title. Then I think Celtic are in a decent position to be able to do that. But Wednesday night represents its own challenge. You've told me, and it's in the strapline, the heading. Can Celtic bounce back this week against an informed St Mirren? You mentioned it after the briefing on Saturday, the informed team in the Premiership. So, and Steve Robinson.
Definitely one of them.
Yeah, Steve Robinson always has his team performing well against Celtic. So this is another tough test for Celtic, but one that you hope that at home, and the onus is on Celtic to come forward and do the business, and they'll get back in the saddle, as you say, back in the bike and back in the horse, whatever way you want to put it, and put the pedal to the metal and get that win that you hope, just as I say, get them back on an even keel again. Saturday was disappointing, but it's not the end of the world, is it?
No, absolutely not. And I just want to bring up a comment that you started earlier. There's a St Mirren fan coming in. Sorry, I've hidden half of our faces here with this comment, but it's one of the longer ones. Graham Caldwell comes in saying, St Mirren fan here in peace. Enjoy listening to the show. Really knowledgeable about football. Looking forward to Wednesday. Hoping we are competitive. I'm sure they will be very competitive, because they've got. I think they've got a manager that will be in the running for a few other jobs in a couple of weeks' time, especially in the Premiership. I think there's quite a few sugary pegs at the moment in the Premiership. I don't think it will just be the St Johnstone job that'll be up for grabs. I know that McLean gets sacked at the weekend, but I think there's quite a number of jobs that maybe managers are in their last chance saloon when it comes to results going their way. I think Robinson will be right in the mix for those jobs. Don't want to mention teams, but the teams that aren't doing as well in the league, or maybe doing as well as what they would have thought at the start of the season. I think Robinson is one of the best operators in the Scottish Premiership. I think he's an absolutely brilliant manager. He works within his means. He gets the best out of his players, and he makes players better as well. I'm a really big fan of his. I think he's done a great job both at Motherwell he was unlucky with the way that his form went. He had to resign regarding Motherwell, but he went back. I think he went to Morecambe, and then St Mirren actually paid money to get him out of his contract to get him to St Mirren. St Mirren are quite an ambitious club, and they're doing really, really well at the moment, so they deserve all the credit that's going their way. Be a very difficult game on Wednesday. They were just coming off the back of a 4-0 win, so they're scoring goals, and they'll be up for it going to Celtic Park. I don't even think they'll see it as a free hit. They'll see it as another game that they can potentially get points from. So it will be a very, very difficult game. You get two Northern Irish managers coming up against each other, and Brendan Rodgers and Robinson. So that certainly has an extra bit of bite. It should be a really, really good game on Wednesday, and you're hoping that a team like St Mirren come out and try and play, because it'll mean it's a better game for everybody involved and everybody watching.
I think they will come and have a go. I don't think Stephen Robinson, to me, has never been a real negative defensive kind of guy. And
I quite like him.
Lots of people on the comment section saying, "Welcome, Graham. How are you doing, sir?" That's a very kind comment you made as well. So we genuinely appreciate that. But I think Wednesday night will be tasty in many ways. And, I think it was Jim Goodwin that won at Celtic, didn't he? Won at Celtic Park, didn't he, against Neil Lennon's team recently?
3 years ago, 2-0.
Yeah,
I seem to remember that was a really, really shocking game. That was one of our favourite.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? So it's not as if you have to go back to the dim and distant past. I think before that result, you had to go back to the dim and distant past for a St Mirren win at Celtic Park. So, I in the past few years, St Mirren have been one of those teams. I think Tony Fitzpatrick was laughed at when he said they could compete and be a regular top 3 or top 5 team.
You get laughed with top 6, I remember.
Yeah, when they came up initially and people were laughing. They're not laughing now. They've got a manager, as you say, a cracking operator, and who's got a good thing going at St Mirren. And despite what you say in terms of those jobs coming up, he might be in the frame. I think sometimes managers kind of, think about where they're at and what they're doing. And I guess money talks and all that. That's always the way, isn't it, in football? But I think some people actually enjoy the job that they're doing and relish that challenge. And I think Stephen Robinson is relish the challenge of going into St Mirren and making a difference and making them, that team that Tony Fitzpatrick said they would be a few years ago and get scoffed at and laughed at. But, as I say, not anybody's laughing now. Whenever you play St Mirren, what are they saying? You're in a game.
Yeah,
you've got a tough game. When I grew up, again, going back to being a Celtic dad, the likes of St Mirren were always 4th or 5th in the table. They always qualified for the UEFA Cup year on, year in, year out. So that's the St Mirren that I grew up. You always had a healthy respect. They always seemed to beat Celtic when it was a sectional League Cup ties. They always seemed to beat Celtic, and those guys in the comment section will remember when the League Cup was he started a section. St Mirren always seemed to draw Celtic and they always seemed to beat them home and away and stuff. So I've got utmost respect for St Mirren. I've got utmost respect for the manager. And this isn't an easy game for Celtic, but do you know what? It's a game that I want for Celtic because it's going to be fiercely competitive. And I think that's what they need, to shake the shackles of Saturday off, that lethargy, get out of their system. And I'm sure the manager will be, Brendan Rodgers will be banging onto the players that on Saturday wasn't good enough, So let's get back to what we've been doing in the 10 games. He said himself he wouldn't berate the players or have much, criticism of them because they've won 8 and drawn 2. So I think there's some perspective, some light and shade needed in these kind of situations, isn't there? The temptation is to knee-jerk and overreact. I just don't see the knee-jerk and overreaction to Celtic start to the season because I think it's been pretty stellar and pretty solid. Yeah, should we have won the 2 0-0 games? Yeah, probably should. But it happens, doesn't it?
Yeah, you're not going to win absolutely every single game. That's if that was the case in Celtic, then it would be quite boring if Celtic were to win every single. I know it'd be great if, and I know that people might come back and say, "Oh, they need," but that's what makes the winning even better is when you get these results along the road because you would get used to just winning all the time. You've got to have that bit of adversity, and Celtic will become a better team because of the adversity that they faced at the weekend. A really difficult game coming up against St Mirren. I think I think they actually had some financial difficulty as well. I seem to remember they posted some negative numbers a few months ago. So the fact that their form, where are they in the league just now? They third in the league at the moment, or they're around about there. I think that just shows you how good a job that Robinson is doing with the limited resources. Once again, I don't want this becoming a St Mirren podcast, but they deserve all the credit in the world for where they are. They're pushing above I think they're pushing above their station, to be honest. They're doing so well. But yeah, the last time they came to Celtic Park, it was a good performance. I know Celtic pulled away towards the end. I think it was 3-1, 4-1 or something. I think Haggerty scored twice, but it was a really close game for about 80 minutes. And the fitness factor came in, and Celtic pulled away towards the end. But you're always going to get a really, really difficult game against St Mirren. I'm just going over old points here, it seems, but it's true. You're always going to have a really difficult game, especially against Stephen Robinson's side. Gets the best out of his players. Delighted that there's a game on Wednesday, because you can right the wrongs of Saturday and put pressure back on, and Celtic can put pressure back on by winning games, as much as the Atletico Madrid result was a good result, and it felt like a win in some ways. Celtic have drawn the last two games. You don't want to make it free without a win. A draw is a draw at the end of the day, and it's a bad habit to get into. So you want Celtic to get rid of that unwanted slight run of form and get the win going, especially at home. You don't want Celtic dropping any points at home. So yeah, hopefully a good performance and a win to go along with that on Wednesday. But we've got plenty of time before that. I think we'll be hearing from Brendan Rodgers today about the squad and how he's feeling ahead of this game. So it'll be interesting to see what he has to say regarding it. And yeah, it's a game that I think will take care of itself. It's two form teams in the league. Should be a good game on Wednesday night.
You mentioned Odin Thiago home earlier and you wanted to see him, but what about Tomoki Iwata? Do you think he could feature, or were you being impressed with Bernardo? Is he still the one to slot in alongside McGregor and O'Reilly for you, or is that something you're going to be mulling over?
Now, if Paulo Bernardo was taken off at half-time on Saturday, I would have been gushing over his performance, because, for that 45 minutes, I thought he was arguably one of Celtic's best players on the park, definitely their best midfielder, because Matt O'Reilly was having a bit of an off day. Cal McGregor was trying to make things happen, but it just didn't come off for the midfield on the day. But I thought he was the one. That chance, it wasn't a high-scoring XG chance, the one that Bernardo had, but that second replay of it shows you just how close it was to sneaking in. It's the bounces right in front of the goalkeeper. That could bounce anywhere. It could bounce and just creep in at the far post. So yeah, it was a good chance. He was trying to make things happen. He was also part of that progression of play that allowed for Maeda to have that chance, which I'm going to exonerated any blame on Daizen Maeda not scoring that chance, because it is a quite tremendous save by David Marshall. It's very much, I don't know if you watched the Manchester derby yesterday, but it's quite similar to Haaland's Onana's save on Haaland in the first half, where Maeda looks like he's the favourite, as was Haaland in that position, but the goalkeeper managed to throw out an arm just quickly and get it away. It was a really, really good save from originally a mistake that David Marshall made. And I thought that, David Marshall made 4 or 5 mistakes in the game that Celtic just didn't punish. It was just one of those days where if Celtic are on it in that day, then they win the game 3 or 4-0 because they punish those mistakes. But I just think that both the physical tiredness, the exertion of energy during the week, mixed with, it's a difficult away game against Hibs. Hibs are always going to up their game against Celtic, especially at home. Yeah, everything just came together, and it just so happened it was a draw. At least it wasn't a defeat, we can say that. But yeah, it was a disappointing one. On another day, Celtic take their chances and win by a few, but it just didn't come off for them. The luck wasn't on their side that day. I know you make your own luck, but luck definitely wasn't on their side. They couldn't get the chances, and they dropped points as a result of that.
Well, I think Celtic are doing their press today, aren't they? Their press conference today. So. We'll certainly hear from the manager, and we'll probably hear about, as you said, Rio Hatate's prognosis as well. We'll hear about Alistair Johnson, who you were talking about, Rocky Bashiri earlier, clearances. Alistair Johnson took the brunt of one, did he not? On the tempo, I think initially everybody thought it was the face, but he took it in the
side of the head.
Side of the head, yeah. So We were talking about rules governing concussion and stuff like that. But I think Brendan Rodgers said it wasn't a concussion, was it? I think he said
no.
That it wasn't. So I guess he was just taken off for precaution. And I'm assuming that Alistair Johnston will be fit and fine to play on Wednesday night. Various sources claiming that Hattati's out until January, but there's only one source who confirm that, and that will be the manager. So he should probably do that at some point today. And look out for that. We'll have the Q&A up and running on the website as soon as we're able to get access to that. And we do the press conferences. We always write them out in a Q&A format, which viewers and contributors seem to like, don't they, Ryan? The subscribers seem to like that, and you get context in it all, don't you? I think that's important.
I like them too, because, you know, as much as you enjoy watching the videos and watching Brendan Rodgers speak or listening to him speak, it's good to have it on paper form, because you can read it out and engage for yourself using the words that he's used. You can determine what sort of mood he's feeling. I know you can do that through the video, but it takes less time to read it rather than watching the video, because you have to go along with the video. Is that they're all available for you? The post-match stuff from Hibernian is on the website as well. So if that tickles your fancy, then please check that out on the Celtic Way website, www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. Shameless plug, but we need to keep on plugging it. £4 for 4 months, £18 for the full year. That's all available on the website. But yeah, I think it's a handy way of reading the press conferences, because I think on other outlets they'll only choose specific quotes, whereas we endeavour to give you every single quote that was said on the press conference. We don't want to miss anything out, both from the traditional media and the fan media as well. You know, we don't miss out any questions that get whatever's on the YouTube video. We'll transcribe it and we'll put it on the website for you.
So look out for that later on, guys, when Brendan Rodgers speaks. But I think Celtic fans have done enough brooding over the weekend. They now look forward to Wednesday night, and I think there's an air of anticipation. There always is, and I think St Mirren will provide stern opposition, Ryan, as we've spoken about, and I think it's a decent game to get yourself back into after the weekend.
Yeah, it's definitely a team. I don't expect them to play a low block. That might be different. They might choose to just play that and try and negate Celtic. They'll definitely play more defensive than they have done against other teams. You know, I don't think they'll be expecting to go out and get a 4-0 against Celtic. I know that did happen in 2010, but you're hoping that doesn't repeat itself for sure, especially at home. That would be an absolutely awful result. But yeah, they will play more defensive because they're going away from home at Celtic Park. That's just it just goes with the territory of going to Celtic Park. You've got to keep it tight at the back, or you won't get those chances going forward, or your chances going forward just won't matter because you're so far behind in the game because of your defensive lapses. But yeah, I think they'll fancy it. St Mirren will fancy it going to. I don't want to call it a free hit again, but it's an opportunity for them to test themselves. So they'll feel quite downtrodden at the way the Rangers game went at home for them. You know, I know they went down to 10 men, and there's not much that can be done about that when you go down to 10 men. Very difficult task, uphill task. But, you know, before that red card, they were well in the game, and this is a great opportunity for them to show what they're like against one of the better teams in the league, or the best team in the league in Celtic. So yeah, they'll be coming full of confidence, hoping to get a result, and it's up to Celtic to counter that by bringing their A game and getting some goals and 3 points back on the board.
I'm very mindful of this as well, Brown Warrior. I was going to bring this up, that St Mirren gave Ange issues last season at Ryan Toney, and Celtic lost 2-0, didn't they, in Paisley? I think that was the first defeat of the season for Ange's team, wasn't it? So, yeah, they are and have been a thorn in the flesh, recent thorn in the flesh to Celtic. So, as you say, nothing less than Celtic's A game will be good enough to win that football match. But I'm confident that Brendan, I feel that he might freshen the side up this time, Ryan. He spoke about the other week when he did that. He mentioned the 7 games in 21 days, and he said he guaranteed that the same team won't play all those games or won't start all those games. So I'm expecting Wednesday to be a time to freshen things up. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, potentially. It'll be interesting to see if maybe the one place that doesn't need to be freshened up is in defence, but that could be a place that there is potential for movement. I think there's a bit of a storyline going on here, or a bit of a side story that's a bit a bit confusing with regard to Lagerbielke. I'm just wondering why he's not on the bench for games, yet he's starting games for Sweden. I don't know if he's struggling to adapt to Scotland or struggling to adapt to things. You know, he wasn't brought in to be the first choice centre back. He's probably had more game time than he thought. I know he's been out of the team. You know, it seems as if he's been out of the team since that sending off. I know he played against Motherwell, but he came off for Phillips. It seems as if Phillips is the backup on the bench. But you know, with his situation needing resolved in January, you know, the deal's only on until January. It'd be interesting to see if Celtic extend that until the end of the season. My guess would be not, because you've got the players coming back, and Nawrocki, Lagerbielke, Stephen Welsh will be back as well. And Scales is really throwing a spanner in the works by being the outstanding player at the back alongside Cameron Carter-Vickers. But even in games with the two of them, it seems like Scales is outperforming him in some quarters, which is an incredible statistic and an incredible place to be, considering where Scales was at the start of the season, you know, and last season, because he wasn't even at Celtic, he was at Aberdeen. So the fact that he's turned it round and become a first team player for Celtic is really a testament to his hard work and ability on the pitch, because he's shown it. You know, he's kept it going. He's done it against Scottish teams. He's done it in the Champions League as well against Atletico Madrid. Lazio too. He didn't really put a foot wrong in that game, I think, either. So defence is an interesting one. The midfield, you know, I'd love to see Odin Thiago home in that team, because I think you need to replace Rio Tati's guile with somebody that's got that guile as well. You're not going to get that from Turnbull. You will get chances from Turnbull. You'll get shots from outside the box. You won't have that guile and in and around the box and outside, breaking the lines with his movement. I think Odin Thiago Home has shown that in his limited game time. He had that start against Kilmarnock and he got lost in the pack, but I think there was a lot of really bad performances on the day, so you can't really blame him too much for that. I just want that resolved, and I hope there is a question posed to Brendan Rodgers today on what the status is for those two players, because, you know, these players should be available from the bench and they're not making the bench for whatever reason. So if it's tactical, if it's an injury, I would just like that resolved from the manager today, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's also options, isn't it? To be fair, don't know what Odin Thiago Home would have brought on Saturday, but he would have brought options, wouldn't he? And he just seems to have, you say, disappeared, hasn't he, without any kind of rhyme or reason or explanation as to why. And lots of people saying they would maybe give Iwata a start. Richard coming in here and saying we'd give Iwata a chance in midfield, add a bit of strength in there and allow Matt O'Reilly and McGregor to do their thing. You know, I think Tomoki Iwata can find himself, you know, or would have found himself fairly hard done by on Saturday, not featuring at all after scoring against Tynecastle and doing very well. But again, they don't strike me as being guys that spit the dummy. I guess the manager explains his actions and why he's doing certain things. Jerry Smith also asking the question, what's happening with Marco Tilio? I mean, I don't think anyone asked the question on Friday, did they?
They didn't, but they asked the question a couple of weeks ago, and Brendan Rodgers was very honest in his response. He said that he's not up to the level at this moment in time. He's struggling to adapt to Scottish football and the physicality of Scottish football, which, you know, I'm not going to write off a player straight away, and there has been circumstances such as his injury. You know, he signed a player and he's got a knock, but they still went ahead with the signing. I think it would be more beneficial for him to have even stayed in Scotland for the 6 months by the time he's back and available. But at the same time, he's not really helping the team at the moment. He's only had that one game against Ayr United, which was a testimonial. You know, that's not even a proper game. It's an exhibition. You want to see more of him, but you know, you can say the same about Yang as well. He's hardly had any game time the past couple of weeks too.
They said the same about Paddy McCourt, didn't they? When he first struggled, he wasn't up to it. His body couldn't handle the step up to, you know, Scottish Premiership football.
I would argue it still couldn't, but he was that technically good. It didn't really matter in some games. Yeah. If he had any bit of fitness about him, he would have been one scary player. That's why he was at Celtic. I've never seen a player beat players that easily. Yeah. And like with such ease to go past players. It was almost as if he was an anomaly.
He was graceful and elegant, wasn't he? And he scored some cracking individual goals. But you're seeing when your level of fitness isn't up to it, and I think that's what was levelled at Paddy McCourt, wasn't it? So I think if Brendan's saying that about Marco Taylor, but other people are saying he's a special footballer, he can do a similar thing. So I'm hoping at some point when Marco Taylor does get his shot, that's the case. He turns out to be some kind of Paddy McCourt type player where he can go past people effortlessly and produce something, and he also works on his fitness and gets it up to that level that Celtic need, because I'm all for options, and here's hoping that he can provide, because as you say, not contributing at all, is he?
At the same time, there's quite a few summer signings that aren't contributing. I seen a post on Twitter that said there was £10 million worth of players that weren't on the bench that were signed in the summer. Celtic can't afford to be throwing £10 million about and not having a return in terms of players. I don't know if that was actually, if it was down to players that weren't on the bench, or it was a mixture of players that weren't on the bench or didn't come on the park. Because, Yang didn't come on. It was Forrest that came on instead of Yang. Now, I know that Yang was having a bad season at Gangwon FC. It's very difficult to get yourself into form when you're just coming off a bad season, or you're halfway through a bad season, coming to a step up or 2 or 3 steps up in Celtic, and then all of a sudden you have to make things happen. But he had a good start with good performance against Aberdeen. I think he came on against Ross County and he looked quite good as well. Athletic Club, he looked as if he had a bit about him, but he's went back in on himself a wee bit, which is a shame.
I'm sure the manager will be all over the fact that there's £10 million worth of talent not contributing to Celtic. I'm sure he'll be.
And this is the argument that we had, because you'd much rather have 10 million. You'd much rather have 10 million spent on 2 players that are going to come into the team and make those positions their own, than 4 or 5 players that are just going to hang about and maybe be subs or come on and not make as much of a difference. I'd much rather they buy quality than quantity, because these and it's almost like going back to the transfer window in that regard, which is topical, because you're going into November and then you only get another month, and then it's the January transfer window is open. I want the January transfer window, and I know this is very early to talk about it, but I don't want any project players. And I know that some project players can be of a high quality that can just instantly come into the team and make things better. You look at players abroad, there's players that come in, they're only 19, 20, but they're automatically first team picks, because it doesn't matter about their age, their quality. They're project players, but they can come in and be even better and improve even more so. The project there is the fact that they're already a first team player, but they can go in and make things even. They can make things even better. I just want the quality to come in January, because I think the team is in need of a bit of a reinvigoration in certain areas. Yeah, I think a couple of real quality additions could make all the difference in the second half of the season. I know there's loads and loads of games to go, but there could be potential for match winners you could bring in January. I know it's a very difficult market to operate in, because loads of teams are scrambling about for players to improve their squad ahead of the second half of the season, but I want there to be quality instead of quantity. 1 or 2 really good signings instead of the 4 or 5 players that are just making up the numbers.
Yep, I want match winners and difference makers, Ryan, in the January transfer window, and if it costs money, so be it. And like you, I'd rather bring in 2 of quality than 4 or 5 who, if you're lucky, 2 or 3 might make a contribution, or even not as high as that. So yeah, I would go for match winners and difference makers.
Look at the 2 signings in Kwon and Tilio. What are they contributing to the team at the moment since they joined in the summer? Kwon hasn't even made his competitive debut. Yeah. What was I don't see what the point is. It's terrible to say that, but I don't see what the point is in signing it. What was the point in signing them when you signed Iwata permanently? And again, what is the point in signing a defensive midfielder if Callum McGregor is going to play in the 6? It just doesn't make sense to me. If you're going to bring in a defensive midfielder, then he's got to play in the number 6 role. You can't play him as a number 8 like Iwata has been playing. He's got to play in his natural position.
I agree with Paul on this one. Quality strikers are a must for me. Even looking within Scotland, I know he's alluding to there when he's saying that.
I'd look at one that scored yesterday.
Yeah, that's exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, connect the dots on that one. So yeah, but I think Celtic, you need another quality striker, because Kyogo needs a hand. You can't be relying on him all the time. Pablo 67 Shanklin would be a good signing. Pablo 67 a goal scorer. Yep, I think that's a priority.
At the moment, he's scoring goals and O isn't scoring goals. So that would be an upgrade. You know, if you're bringing on a player off the bench that can score goals.
And my thing about O as well is its contribution and impact. And I'm just not seeing it with O when he's coming off the bench. I don't think the manager's seen it either. He's not had a go at him publicly or anything, but I've seen the way Brendan Rodgers reacts sometimes. He went tonto at him at Tynecastle for one moment, I think, when he gave up easy and cheap possession. And I mean, he really was, because I was right behind the kind of dugout and I saw his reaction when O did that, and he wasn't best pleased, you know. So I think, Brendan's given him these kind of cameos, and I don't think he's producing what he wants him to. Hopefully, Brendan can continue to work on him and make him better. But I think if you're Brendan Rodgers, then a striker of repute could be high in your transfer shopping list in January, because you might need him, because perish the thought, touch wood, that Kyogo doesn't get injured. But and I just don't see enough in terms of contribution and impact from O when he is coming on, and that you want him to, an impactful striker wins you that game on Saturday, don't they? Because they bust their gut, they do everything, they try and make things happen, and I can't remember anything of note that O did.
I can remember one thing that he did, and it was a big mistake in my opinion. He goes with his head rather than his feet for a chance. There's a cross that goes into him or a pass that goes into his path, and he goes with his head instead of his feet, when he can get more stretch into his feet and get a shot away and more power. You know, it was one of those ones where if he's going to score a header, then it's going to have to be perfect, like the Van Persie in the World Cup one.
Yes,
that sort of dolphin dive of a header. I don't know if O's got that in his locker, so he's got to go with his feet or take a touch. But it's just the wrong decisions he's making. If I'm being perfectly honest, and I don't want to write off a player too soon, I think he could be one of the players that falls by the wayside because of Ange Postecoglou's leaving. He was one of these players that was brought in January. You know, Ange Postecoglou was a big fan of him. He seemed to be very motivated to play. Oh, sorry, just hitting my... I'm not getting raging talking about or anything. I just hit my microphone by accident. He's one of these players that was brought in January. Ange Postecoglou was a big fan of him, and he was getting those good performances, getting goals. Sometimes it just doesn't fit. You bring in a player in January, and then a new manager comes in, and it just doesn't fit. And it's unfortunate because it's the 6 months. You know, it's been 6 months. He's hardly had a chance. He's hardly had a go. But you hear stuff online about O being a good player. I want to see O being a good player. He's getting given opportunities. He gets 25 minutes, half an hour, and that's the only thing I can remember is him. It's him making the wrong decision in front of goal. You know, I want him to be peppering the goal with shots.
A good player wins that game for Celtic on Saturday. A good striker, or a striker of repute. That's where you earn your corn. Those times when you're coming on and nothing has happened prior to you coming on. So go and be the difference maker. Go and win that game. Go and get Celtic all 3 points, and you'll look back on in the season and say that was an important 3 points. You know, that kind of thing. And it was a kind of thing that, and I know he's left, I know he's gone, and I don't dwell on it. Giakoumakis did. You know, he would come on and he would score with that first touch, or maybe on an off day he would take 2 touches to score. You know, that kind of thing. So that's the kind of impact you have to have, especially if it's not all going well or not going well, like it was on Saturday. You know, that game was crying out for a match winner, a difference maker. And if I'm I'm like, I'm going to be that guy. I'm going to put myself about. I'm going to do everything I can to bust the net. I just didn't see that. I agree with this. Brian McGinlay, Giakoumakis wins that game Saturday. He does. That's why I brought him up. And yeah, so I think there's shorn of quality in that department if you take away Kyogo from being a main striker. So.
But I think there's problems in other areas, and I think that it's down to Abada's injury, to be honest, that's thrown a real spanner in the works. Abada would be Celtic's first choice right winger, I think. You know, especially if you've seen the start of improvements under Brendan Rodgers with Abada. And you know, he is up and down, but you know, at the same time he is 21, 22 years old. You're going to get that with his game. The problem with that is that Maeda's having to play on left or right wing every single game. Now, Brendan Rodgers sees Daizen Maeda. He said it himself in pre-season. He sees him as a striker.
Yes.
And he's the backup striker. He is, for all intents and purposes, the backup striker at Celtic, not O. But Brendan Rodgers has to play Maeda in those positions because of the injuries to certain players in the wing. So he can't put Maeda on the bench to be that option coming off the bench up front for Kyogo. By the time that Kyogo's coming off the pitch, Daizen Maeda's probably coming off the pitch because he's tired as well. So then you've got a problem because you've got a striker then coming on, Ano, who unfortunately isn't scoring goals. If Rodgers sees Maeda as the striker, then he's got to put him on the bench and bring him off games. I know his defensive work is good, but if that's where he sees him as best fit, then he's got to put him on the bench and bring him on after 60 minutes. Once Abada's back, I think that will be the case because I think it'll be Abada and Palmer on each wing, and then I think there might even be more rotation between Maeda and Kyogo, to carry that load. But then again, that brings about another problem if both are called up for the Asia Cup, because who do you play up front? And then O plays for South Korea. So who do you play up front then?
I think it'll be the fact that's why Celtic need a priority striker in January.
Even on loan.
The Asian Cup is coming thick and fast, and players will be departing thick and fast to represent their countries. So I think that's why it's a total, it's top of the list, top of priority.
I think they'll be back. I said it last week, but I think they'll be back in for that Danish striker in January. I've just got a funny feeling they'll go back in for Kvistgaarden from Brøndby.
Yeah, like he was mentioned in the comments. Somebody mentioned him here, didn't they? Because someone asked who the Danish striker was.
I think
in the comments somewhere, yeah. So,
but he's not ain't a target man. He's only 5'6", 5'7". So you're bringing in another player that's very much like Kyogo or Maeda. I just think Celtic need to sometimes be a bit agricultural with their style of play.
It's possible. I think. I mean, that's one option, but I'm sure there's a plethora of options on that striking list, and Shankland may well be one of them too, amongst others. But we shall see. Now that's 57 minutes we've managed to eke out of a 0-0 draw on Saturday, Ryan, and other such things. Quite chuffed about that. I was wondering where we would if we would go that long or be able to speak that long about 2 drop points on Saturday. But you move on, don't you? In the nature of Celtic, you move on to the next one. It's St Mirren on Wednesday. But interested to see what the manager talks about today. Gives us a flavour of what's going on. Hopefully get an update on Hatate, Thiago home, and get some kind of inkling into his thinking about team shape for Wednesday and who comes into his thinking on that. But yeah, so, and Joe Curran coming in saying, Tony, why do you keep going on about Gigi? And you said to the left, forget them. I don't go on about them. I just mentioned it because Celtic need a striker, and I said he would have won the game. You know my thoughts on that. They have gone. I don't mention them a lot. I just thought that it was a fair enough comparison.
Especially when his replacement, or his like-for-like replacement, isn't doing the things that Giakoumakis did. Giakoumakis had the goal-scoring record.
He did, guys. But my thoughts on whenever people mention Ange and Giakoumakis, I say they have gone, they have left the club. I was making a comparison mostly, so that was all. I know they've left. I wish them good luck, but I don't particularly speak about them a lot on here because they have gone, and they are yesterday's men in terms of Celtic. It was just a compare and contrast exercise I was doing with because he was Giakoumakis' replacement. Yeah, so there you go. But there we are, edging towards the hour mark. I think we've done all right, Ryan, this morning. Considering there's
always some. I think on a Monday there's always something to talk about because you've got the game at the weekend, or the game just passed at the weekend, and it's never too long before Celtic are back in action again because of the hectic schedule. They've got to put things right. As much as it was a draw isn't an absolute disaster, but at the same time, when you're writing about Celtic and discussing Celtic, it is a disaster when they don't win. But that's just the standards that they uphold, and it's up to them to put it right on Wednesday.
Stopped it from being an out and out happy Monday, didn't it? You know what I mean? So it's been kind of fairly middle of the road Monday, I think you'll
middle
say.
of the road Monday, yeah.
Yeah. With us two, chirpy, cheaping, basically. The older ones will get that, Ryan. All right, so
I get that as well. I know the song.
You get that? That's all right then. Excellent. Gary Thompson said, "Unbeaten champions and never stop." I guess that's the positives to pick up from that. So there you go. Hazel Finn, morning Hazel. We move on. Well said. Be interesting to see the team pick for Wednesday. Great show. Thanks very much, Hazel. Appreciate that. Pete McGee, there's always something to talk about every day, Ryan, or you wouldn't have a podcast. You're right, Pete McGee. Exactly. Even timekeeping, you name it. All sorts, isn't it? But hey, it's what we enjoy doing. We hope we entertain you. We hope you enjoy it. And as we say, we always ask you, if you enjoy what we do, then subscribe to the Celtic Way website, and we'll endeavour to provide top quality football journalism covering the club you love. Costs you £4 for 4 months, or why not take out a subscription for the year? Costs you £18. Hit that button, guys. www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. That's www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. And we say thank you to MPH Group, who are the new sponsors of the Celtic Way morning briefing. And for all your plumbing, heating and kitchen and bathroom needs, check out MPH Group. And the Celtic Way morning briefing is brought to you by MPH Group, who are Scotland's award-winning family-run all-trade specialists covering all of mainland Scotland. And every service you opt for automatically enters you into MPH's incredible holiday giveaway, and you can win a 7-night stay at the luxurious 5-star Moon Palace Resort in Cancun, Mexico. And you will find all the links to MPH's social media platforms, including their telephone number, in the description of this video. So check out MPH Group for all your plumbing, heating, kitchen and bathroom needs. And we say thank you to them for sponsoring the Celtic Way morning briefing. Guys, we move on to Wednesday. St Mirren, the visitors. We'll preview it more tomorrow and on Wednesday. Strap myself in for another long day on Wednesday, Ryan. But there you go. But I always say that it was result dependent, and your weekend partially ruined, not totally ruined. Points not the end of the world, is it? It's not. They're still, Celtic are still 5 points clear at the top of the Scottish Premiership. Ryan, thank you very much for your contribution today. Appreciate it. Guys, we shall see you tomorrow. Same time, same place, same back channel, as they say. Same two guys doing their thing. All right, take care. All the best.
Thanks, guys.